Hi, I'm Veeru, and I work as Chief Operating Officer at BestDoc. And I myself have been an entrepreneur and started a chain of hospitals in the year 2005. And then these were essentially small hospitals, mid-sized hospitals, catering to the tier two and tier three towns of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh in India, essentially south of India. And we built about 18 such hospitals, catering primarily to the primary care and secondary care, right? So, yeah, that was almost 10 years back. And then I moved on from them on. And then now I'm at BestDoc. And let me just share something about BestDoc. BestDoc is about transforming patient experience with technology at healthcare facilities. And over 250 healthcare branches in India and the Middle East use our solutions now. And more than 5 million patients have used our solutions so far. We have essentially two major offerings. One is BD Concierge and BD Survey. BD Concierge is about a request management solution, and BD Survey is about patient feedback and analytic solution. And our solution Concierge has recently won first prize at Global Health Exhibitions in Saudi Arabia. And let me take this opportunity to introduce our guest, Catherine. Uh, Catherine has over 25 plus years of experience in the healthcare domain, and she's currently the Division Vice President of Patient Experience at HCA Healthcare. She's worked on improving the lives of various stakeholders in healthcare, including families, physicians, and patients. She's recently authored a book titled Better Than I Found It: Stories of Patient Experience and Healthcare Leadership. Uh, So let's, talk to Catherine about her experience in this field for over 2 decades, and then about her book and what she has to say about this particular domain. Yeah, Catherine.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be joining you today.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been in healthcare for quite a while now, always in non-clinical roles, really trying to focus on making the experience better, not just for patients, but also for staff and for physicians. It's a tough job being in healthcare.
Right,
It's
right,
not easy.
absolutely.
And,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
trying to just make it as smooth and as simple as we can. My mom was actually a nurse. My mom was a nurse for 50
Okay.
years.
Oh,
And I saw how
okay.
hard she worked. So I wanted to get into healthcare, but I knew that I didn't really want to get into the blood and guts of it like she did. So I went into more administrative avenues. And again, really just focusing on how do we make the experience better. And we can do that in a number of ways, whether it's that interpersonal communication. Technology has been an assistance for us. And
Okay.
so I'm excited to be talking to you and learning more about your offerings and what you guys do, and sharing a little something about my approach to patient experience as well.
Right. So essentially, Catherine, what we're trying to do here is that, the patients come to a hospital for a specific need, which is they would like to get well for whatever conditions that they're suffering from. But essentially, these are people, right? These are human beings, patients themselves, and the attenders who accompany them. End of the day, they some of the things that they understand, how clean the room is, how well the ambience is, how comfortable the room is, room services are, about bathroom cleanliness, and how well the the staff of the hospital speak to them. Correct. So
Right.
these are the things that they definitely understand. Right. They may or may not understand what the doctors are prescribing to them, what surgery they're undergoing and why, and what it means, but they do definitely understand the hospitality part of healthcare, right? So essentially what we're trying to do is that these aspects of hospitality within a hospital is something that we are making it comfortable using technology. For instance, a patient might want, it could be a towel, or it could be some asking somebody to come and clean their room, or something is spilled, so that they are able to get these services done in quick time. And as you clearly said, running a hospital is a complex entity, right? And then while everybody is running around, but these are the needs that patients understand, and we need to address them, correct? And then what we're trying to do is that some of these services, just by click of a button on their mobile phone, they could raise this request, and it reaches the exactly the person that is responsible for that particular area, correct?
Yeah.
So it reaches the right person, so they're able to quickly address this, right? So otherwise what happens in hospitals, I'm not sure as in how it happens in the US, but mostly it's the nursing station where all the calls land. Everybody goes to the nursing station and said, I want this. So nurses are, kind of superhumans. Not only are they managing the nursing care, but they're managing just about everything, correct? So what we're trying to do here is that the services land in the right place at the person who is supposed to address it, so that they're able to attend these requests quickly, and the hospital administration gets to see the turnaround time, right? And then and they can set a standard, like XYZ, like if you ordered a food, it should should be delivered in 20 minutes. So it gets delivered. If it does not, and if it's happening on a consistent basis, then the management has knows where exactly we need to put our efforts, maybe work on a solution if there is a problem that we can address. So this is essentially in a nutshell what we're trying to do. And your comments on what we're trying to do, and what do you think, are our efforts in the right direction?
Well, I think anything that makes the job of the nurses easier is
Yeah.
always in the right direction.
Right.
So often, that's what we hear. The nurses, as you said, are pulled in a number of different directions. They're managing complaints about all kinds of things. And if it's as you say, if it's about the food, then the food person should be the one handling it, not the nurse. So I love that idea. I think for me, technology, it can't just be something that's cool and flashy and wow, look what it can do. It has to be a value add. There has to be something in it that really makes the lives of our staff a whole lot easier, and makes patients feel like they're not just being passed off to, just hit this button. They still want that personal connection, and they still want to feel, cared for by the staff. So we don't want to completely strip the humanity out of it. And it sounds like what you've created here does just that.
Right. So essentially, I think the patients are also kind of overwhelmed, because the way our hospitals are structured, they're, mega structures, and then it's very easy for patients to get lost. And the fact that they're ill, not in the best of spirits, right? So, if we can make some of their experiences easier by giving some of these tools so that they get what they want. So, try and make it simpler for them, right? So that's essentially the effort that we're putting in. So in your experience, as in how has this last 25 years been? As in, have you seen any change in the way the hospitals are behaving towards the needs of the non-clinical needs of the patients? Is there a shift in the behavior? Has there been any change?
Yeah, there is. I think, here, I don't know what it's like where you are, but here in the US, we are suffering a really pretty severe staffing crisis. A lot of our doctors and nurses have left the field during COVID. Either they went into retirement early, or they left the practice entirely, or they're taking a lot of what we call traveler contracts. So they have a 3-month engagement at a hospital, and then they're off to another one. So they stay for short periods of time, but they make a lot of money doing that. So it's hard to find staff that are what we call core, and the ones that are really members of that hospital, members of that facility, and will be there for the long term. That has really shifted a lot. A lot of our staff are either travelers or they're brand new nurses that just graduated, and it takes a while to get really, really good at nursing. And we've got a whole team of brand new young folks. It's a little harder for them to be comfortable enough to have those connections with patients like we like. And so we've been really struggling with our staffing, not having nearly enough of the staff that we need. So the ones that are there are doing a lot more work with a lot fewer resources.
Wow. So it is,
and it's really putting a
lot of stress on them as well.
Very, very much so. And sadly, the patients that are coming to see us are ones who probably put off their wellness checks. During COVID, a lot of people weren't going to their doctor's appointments and weren't keeping up on their regular health care. And so now that they're finally coming to the hospital, they're a little sicker than they were before. So that adds an increased layer of stress to our staff. And making it, again, more difficult for them to really deliver the kind of care that they want to deliver. And so, again, we're always looking for ways to make their life simpler and make our patients feel as though, even though we're a little short, we're a little busy, we're not too busy to tend to their needs, both medical and emotional. As you said before, they're under a lot of stress when they first come to the hospital. They're scared. They're full of anxiety about what might happen. They're really concerned about a lot of things. And so they need someone to kind of guide them, hold their hand and reassure them. And with our staff being as busy as they are, it's harder for them to do that. I know they want to, but it's harder for them to find the time to be able to do that. So anything that we can do to provide them some additional help and resources to take care of some of those other needs is always welcome news for them.
Yeah, that's right. So, Catherine, has there been any shift in the technology usage to ensure that there is a little less burden on the nursing staff or the healthcare staff? Has there any adoption in that space you have seen in the US or globally, if you have experience?
Sure. We're looking at many, many more tech solutions right now because we know that our nursing shortage is so severe. We're looking at a lot of different things here, especially here specifically in my division here in Texas. We are looking at an outsourcing of our discharge follow-up phone calls. So one of our normal practices is once a patient leaves the hospital after an inpatient stay or an emergency room visit, we like to call them a couple of days later, check in on them, see how they're feeling. Are they doing better? Did they get their prescription medication? Did they get that follow-up appointment? Any of those kinds of wellness things after the fact. And that has created a tremendous burden for our leaders. Trying to call every patient that was discharged is a huge, huge undertaking.
And you're saying there is already shortage of staff?
Yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely. So we've actually engaged with a partner, a technology partner that's going to take that off of our leaders' plates. They're going to automate those phone calls so that they'll be in touch. They'll reach out and see how they're doing. And then if patients want an additional touch point with someone, all they have to do is press 1 and the leader of that unit is notified and they will call them back for some personalized follow-up. So that's one way that we've been able to use technology to relieve some of the burden.
Right. So I think the last 2 years with the COVID hitting across the world, I think some technology usage, I think, is definitely gone up, especially the video conferencing or video consultation, what we like to call. I think this was unheard of. Doctors would say this is not going to work. What has been your experience over the last 2 years?
So you're right. The virtual visits, the video technology has just exploded here, and I think some of our providers are feeling good about it because they at least have some connection with patients. They're at least getting some kind of follow-up care that they know that they need, which is better than nothing. But every doctor I know likes to see a patient in person, likes
Right,
to
right,
put your hands on them and see them and,
right.
that kind of thing. But if we can't do that, then video teleconferencing is the next best thing. And I
Right.
know that our doctors would rather do that than nothing at all. But you're
Right.
right, that would have been absolutely unheard of just a few years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Video
Yeah.
visit. What are you talking about? You have to go to a doctor's office. They have to see you.
Yeah.
Well, ideally, but if they can't, then this is certainly the next best thing.
But Katherine, do you think the video consultation or conference video consultation, you think it'll stay in some form, or you think it'll be wiped away?
I think now that we've gotten to this point, I don't think we can put that genie back in the bottle. I think people are, I think they're feeling more and more comfortable with, patients certainly are feeling more and more comfortable with it.
Right.
It's more convenient for the patient. And so I think that's what they're going to expect, even when all of this is over, completely over. I think they're still going to want to have a doctor visit from the comfort of their own home. And it's really going to be up to our physicians if they want to continue to provide that level of care. And I suspect they will.
Right. So are the doctors now accepting that this is something that they need to be doing?
I would say yes. I think with so many people still not wanting to go to doctor's offices, I mean, they are filled with germs.
Afraid of coming to the hospital.
Yeah, I for one would much rather again be in my living room as opposed to sitting in a waiting area with a bunch of other people around me coughing and sneezing, spreading germs all over the place. So
you'd rather stay away from the hospital as much as possible.
I would, and I think I'm not alone. We have so many people too that are absolutely terrified of hospitals. Just the thought of going to the doctor's office, gets them full of anxiety, right? You've got white coat syndrome, right? They get their blood pressure taken and it's through the roof because they're nervous about being at the doctor's office. So I wonder if this is going to be something that more and more people are going to say, you know what, if it works just as well, and in their minds they think it does, then they'll continue to do it. I think it's going to be important for our physicians to be very clear about what kinds of visits are fine via virtual and what kinds of visits really do need to be in person, and be very clear about that for our patients, that they are getting the very best care.
Right. So, Katherine, can you just tell us a little bit about the book you've written?
Sure.
I found it better than I found it.
Better than I found it. So this, I did not start out to try and write a book. This came from a friend of mine who was pestering me to start writing down some of my stories in healthcare. When you work in hospitals and doctors' offices and things like that, you accumulate a lot of interesting stories over time. So many of the stories are kind of funny. They're sort of amusing. Some of them are not, but it really just came about just a couple of little short stories here and there. And after a period of time, I realized I had enough for an actual book. So I wove them all together, and it took about 4 years of writing. And even after it was finished, I sat and I stared at it for about 1.5 years before I finally had the courage to put it out there into the universe. But I'm glad I did, because I think, we've lost sight, I think, of some of the human connection and what patient experience means. I'm old enough to remember when it was first introduced, when patient experience first was talked about, and hospitals, I thought, they thought it was all about making the hospitals beautiful and gorgeous. And in fact, I used to work for one that had marble floors as you walked in, and there was a harpist in the lobby, and it was beautiful, right? And we thought that was what patient experience was, but it's so much more than that. It's much more important, much more substantive, and really tied to quality and safety. So when we talk about doing those hourly check-ins on patients and bedside shift report, when one nurse talks about the patient to the other nurse that's coming on, and they do that in front of the patient, All of those things
Mm-hmm.
are not just patient experience things, but they're safety things, and
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
relate
yeah,
back to
yeah,
better clinical
yeah.
outcomes. So we're finally getting to the point where patient experience has a seat at the table as an important piece of healing.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I think you're very right. Catherine, what happened was I was heading a hospital in the northeastern part of India
Mhm.
during the COVID period. And then because of the shortage of beds in India, we are primarily a cancer care hospital. But then the government of the state government asked us to provide some beds for the COVID. So our cancer patients were put in a different wing, and then we allocated a couple of floors to the COVID patients. And what happened was, of course, in cancer, we had very few patients, but then about 8, 10 patients, we put them in ICU. These were not patients who belonged in ICU. They
Mhm.
were very much, all their senses were alert. And then, of course, when the doctors come on rounds, we are talking about this patient, da, 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 da. There was no audio privacy, and patients could hear what's happening. It was actually kind of traumatizing for
Mm.
everybody. We didn't know what to do. We had to go about our businesses as it is. And then for the doctors and nurses, I think it is business as usual. But then the relatives who are hearing about all of this, it was, I think, it was a situation, right? I mean, we
Mhm.
couldn't help it. We had to continue to care for our cancer patients, as well as we had to provide care to the COVID patients who were pouring in, right? So it was an experience that I can't forget, in the sense,
Mhm.
sometimes we look like we are completely kind of, I don't know, maybe we become immune to what the patient would feel, or just the situation. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to forget what it feels like from their perspective.
correct, correct.
We've got a job to do. We're there to
Yes, yes,
get the job done. And we forget that there's a person on the other side of that is
yes,
listening to everything that we're
yes,
saying, and is
yes.
still, concerned and afraid and all that. And, it's easy to forget.
Right. So, are there anything that you would like to suggest to the healthcare administrators, leaders across the world? As in, is there something that healthcare leaders need to worry about, or need to start thinking about? At least, is there a change that you feel is needed in the leadership, healthcare leadership?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, and this came about, I think, specifically from COVID. We realized that if we were really serious about delivering a good patient experience and keeping them safe and providing that high quality care, all with that very personalized connection, the first thing we had to do was take care of our staff members and make sure that
Wow.
if staff
Wow. Yeah.
feel,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
if
Yeah.
they're valued, if they're important, if they're appreciated, if we care for them, then they can turn around and give great patient care. So we've
Right.
really
Right.
stepped up our leadership game and
Mm-hmm.
are spending a lot more time connecting with our staff and
Okay. Okay.
recognizing the great work that they do, appreciating them, all of that good stuff. And that makes it easier for them then to turn around and deliver great patient care. So that's been the biggest change. And the biggest thing I would say, if leadership is serious about patient experience, then they first need to invest into their front care providers and making sure that they know that
Okay.
their work is important.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying there is a sudden realization that these are the
Yes,
most important people. So you're
that's
saying
the
that's going
hope.
to stay, or
I hope so. I sure hope so. We're
okay.
seeing certainly our staff members here are picking up on the fact that leadership is really much more visible and engaged
Mm-hmm.
and out there with the
Mm-hmm.
staff instead of sitting behind their desks, and they
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it. And it's starting to show in how they're treating patients, because again, when you feel valued and respected, it's much easier to be
Right.
deliver
Right.
that care for your patients.
Right. 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 So is there a shift in behavior of the patients with digitization, and then now I think the patient come read, or at least a patient go on the web and then read a little about the patient condition.
Mm.
And because of that, you think there has been a shift in the expectation from the patient side?
I think there probably has. I think, COVID has taken its toll not only on our healthcare workers, but the
Mhm.
patients themselves. They're tired. They're not feeling great. They come in with sort of a grumpier attitude. I think that's what we're finding is they're coming in and they're feeling in a kind of a rough place, and their expectations are a lot higher. And so
Mhm.
the demands on the staff are a lot higher. So we
Mhm.
have this sort of tension between the staff members that are tired and the patients that are sicker and kind of grumpier. So it's been a real challenge for us to bridge that gap and
Mhm.
to continue to deliver great care again while supporting our healthcare teams. So I think if our patients just remember that, yes, we are here to serve you. Yes, your needs are important. And you have to just come in with just a little bit of grace, knowing that our healthcare teams have been through an awful lot, and they're
Right,
doing their very best to keep you comfortable. So it's about managing some of those expectations, I think.
right, right. So I just wanted to come back to this book of yours.
Yes,
So this book is only about stories, or it's got some take-home messages as well?
it does have some words of wisdom in it. So I
Okay, so
usually,
would you like to share with us?
again, I think it's the biggest takeaway for me is just to remember that patient experience is a lot of things, and it isn't
Mhm.
just fluffing pillows and having gourmet food and fancy things like I mentioned before. But
Right.
when it's done well, it's good for not just the patients, but it's good for the healthcare teams. I think we all go into
Mhm.
healthcare because we want to help people. We want to
Right.
make people feel better, and we want to take care of folks. And so I think it's easy to lose sight of that. It's easy to,
Right.
again, forget what it feels like. So this is really some very practical advice as to how to tap into some of those motivations for getting into healthcare in the first place. And if you've lost sight of that, if you're starting to get a little jaded or cynical or burnt out, this
Yeah,
book
yeah,
might be a
yeah.
really good guide to reconnect back into your original purpose.
Right, 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 right. So how are you coping with burnout among your staff and stuff like that?
Well, we're doing our best to offer as many things as we can for our staff. Again, listening is the most important thing, right? Instead of us
Okay.
trying to figure out how to help them, we can ask them
Right.
because they'll usually tell us what they need. And we're fortunate here that we have some really wonderful programs in the area here. Artists and musicians that will come and not just work with patients, but also with staff. So
Mm-hmm,
we
mm-hmm,
have people
mm-hmm.
that will come in and sing and perform. We've got dog therapies and the animals that come and visit patients. They do it for the staff as well. And there's nothing that brightens up a person's day better than having a dog come and visit. And you just sit and play with the dog. We actually even have a miniature horse in one of our hospitals.
Okay,
It's
okay,
like this little horse that does pet therapy, and things like that really make a big difference in the lives of our staff. So
okay.
again, the first thing is listening to what they need and then doing everything that we can as
Right.
leaders to provide that for them.
Okay. So some of these things that you mentioned is a recent occurrence, or this has been something
Mhm.
you've been doing for the long time?
So it's most of it is very recent. Some of it's been
Oh,
around for a little while, but we've certainly stepped up our engagement with those folks to make sure those services are
mm-hmm,
much
mm-hmm.
more widely available than they were before.
Okay, okay. So it's been well received?
Very well, very
Okay,
well.
okay. Nice, nice. So, yeah, so you call yourself a patient experience leader, right?
I do.
So are there so are there more likes of you, or
There are. This is
uh-huh.
a thing here. I had to sit for an exam. There's a certification that goes with this. It's a 4-hour test that we have to
Mm-hmm,
take to become
mm-hmm,
certified in patient experience.
mm-hmm,
And it's become a thing now, as opposed to just something that nice people do to spread joy and happiness around. I mean, there's a real science to it, and
mm,
it's more and more becoming a thing here in the States, which is really great to see.
mm, nice, nice.
for us, when we're looking for a technology partner, we are looking for the one that is a value add to our care teams, supports them, demonstrates that we're listening, that we want to make sure that we are eliminating any barriers there are for them to deliver great care. So as long as it is a value add and still maintains that connection to the patients, so we haven't stripped all the humanity out of our interactions with them. That is for us the most important thing, is keeping that human connection while still demonstrating support and care for the frontline staff.
So, Catherine, you have any, we are essentially technology company, right? Trying to work only on in the space of a non-clinical part of the hospital, correct?
That's
Our
right.
focus is mostly into the non-clinical experience of the patients. So we're here we are talking about we take care of food. We take care in the sense we facilitate, right? There are providers of food F&B, so we connect you there. So like in any restaurant, you get the menu. Okay, you choose, pick and choose, and then order it. And then the order is tracked. You can make the payment. So some of it we're trying to make it hassle-free. Whatever services that you might have. And because we have this connect with the patients now, using our app, the hospitals are also able to send relevant material. For instance, post-discharge information that is needed. It could be videos, it could be educational material, right? And then also our app or the technology that we have allows us to, depending on the hospital, if the hospital says only after 3 days after discharge, we would like to ask the patients a few questions, right? It could be 3 days later. So you just ask like, how are you feeling today? Or any questions that the hospital like to ask the patients, right?
Sure.
They can post that. So now it's only through human intervention and then call centers, and we know how difficult it is for call centers to engage, And this, I think, is a non-intrusive way of asking them, and they can answer at their leisure. Correct. It allows them, freedom, right? Because we've seen that whenever we put call center people there, it's very difficult for them to, start kind of connect with them and then ask relevant questions and then to be able to get any meaningful conversation going on, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So you think technology like this does at all kind of appeal to you, and then what we're doing, you think we're in the right direction? Is it kind of useful? What's your take on what we're doing?
Yeah, I think, again, this sounds, for me, it passes a lot of tests. When I look at new technology offerings, there's a few hoops that, you've got to jump through to get my attention. And one of them certainly is, is it a value add for the care team? Will it make their care team's lives easier? And that's hoop number one. And it sounds like, for sure.
Right.
Something that, again, it directs their questions to the people that are the most appropriate ones to answer those questions. So that's number one. Second one certainly is, does it make the patients' lives easier? Does it help them in some way? And certainly if they're getting their needs addressed quickly, that's what they want, right? They want to make sure they're not waiting for something that should be a very simple thing to do.
Right.
And does it still feel personal? Does it still feel like there's a connection there, as opposed to just a piece of technology? And the fact that yours sounds very personalized and interactive is certainly something that would appeal to someone like me. And and then does it work? That's certainly probably the most important question. Does it work? And it sounds like it does. So those are the kinds of things that we always are on the lookout for when we're, again, trying to find a good technology partner. So kudos to you guys for coming up with this idea, and I hope it does really, really well. Congratulations on your award.
Thank you so much. And is your book available now? everywhere in the world, or?
Yes, Amazon is where it is mostly, everywhere that books are sold. So right now, we're waiting for it to actually drop. It's in a pre-order state, and on October 28th, which is just a week from tomorrow, it will actually be starting to ship, and I'm very excited to see it launch.
Okay. Hope it's a resounding success, and all the best to you.
Thank you, and to you.
And thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, hope to connect with you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.